When working with a composite, you have layers stacked one on top of the other, and the layers on the bottom show through the layers on the top through areas of transparency. For example, in this composite, the background is showing through a transparent area in the aqua gold layer. If we turn the drink layer off, and then turn on the transparency grid, we see that the can part itself is opaque, but everything around the can is transparent. Which is why, when we turn the drink layer back on, it can show through this transparent area. I'll turn the background layer back off, and notice when I position the mouse pointer over the can, in the info panel here, we see that the A value is 1. But if I move the mouse pointer into the transparent area, the A value is 0. 0 means 0 opacity, and 1.0 means complete opacity. Now notice, if you have your info panel set to show RGBA values using another format, like say 8BPC, 0 to 255, then you'll see these values as 0 and 255. But I like mine set to decimal, so I'll put it back. 0 and 1 aren't the only possible options for alpha channel. Just like color channels, you can have gradations in an alpha channel for semi-transparency. Let's put another layer into the scene. I'll drag the Hip Hop Girl item on top of the can. And then, if we zoom in to see her hand better, I'm using the mouse wheel to zoom in, and then I'm holding the spacebar for the hand tool. As we zoom in here and see an area of partial transparency around the edge of her sleeve here, the A value is not 1 and not 0, but somewhere in between. This allows the background layer to partially show through. So if I turn the background layer back on, we can see that we're seeing a little bit of the background through this semi-transparent area along the edge of her sleeve. We already have alpha channel values determined for the woman layer and for the can layer, but for demonstration purposes, I'll go ahead and create some more areas of transparency. I'll zoom back out with the mouse scroll wheel, and with the can selected, I'll use the pen tool to draw a mask on this layer. Now notice that everything within the closed mask is opaque, and everything outside the closed mask is transparent. I'll press M to show the mask on the timeline panel, and I'll click the inverted checkbox to switch that so that now everything inside the closed mask is transparent, and everything outside the closed mask is unaffected by the mask. I'll delete the mask. Another way of defining transparency is to use a track matte. If I choose here, Alpha Matte, then the aqua gold layer is getting its transparency information from the Hip Hop Girl layer. If I invert this, then we see that the aqua gold layer is getting its transparency information from the inverse of the alpha channel value for the Hip Hop Girl layer. I'll set this back to not use a track matte at all, and turn that layer back on. If I put the Hip Hop Girl layer under the can, and then click the Preserve Underlying Transparency button, and turn off the background layer, you can see that now the can is getting its transparency information from the transparency information of the composite of the layers underneath it. I'll turn that off, and I'll leave this layer where it is to now show the use of an effect, the Set Matte effect. If I apply this to the can layer, and then tell it to take its matte from the Hip Hop Girl layer, very similar to defining a track matte, I'm now telling the can layer to get its transparency information from the Hip Hop Girl layer. There are many other effects that define alpha channel information, many of which are found in the channel category, as with the Set Matte effect here. If I clear the search, we can browse through the channel category and see that there are many effects that can have results on the alpha channel. I'll press Ctrl-Z to undo and get us back to our original state. Another way to define transparency is to paint on a layer. I'll double-click on the aqua gold layer to open it in the layer panel, and I'll switch to the painting workspace and choose the brush tool. And here, I'll paint on alpha. I'll make my brush size much larger by holding down the Control key while I drag in the layer panel. And now, if I paint, I'm painting on the alpha channel and making this a transparent area. I'll undo by pressing Ctrl-Z. Another tool that can define transparency information is the Rotobrush tool. Usually the Rotobrush tool is used on moving images, but for demonstration purposes, I'll go ahead and use it here on this still image. And let's look at the composition here. Give ourselves a little bit more room in the composition panel to see the result. Now notice this aqua logo here that I segmented with the Rotobrush tool is now showing up here as opaque. I could invert this by clicking Invert Foreground Background in the Effect Controls with the Rotobrush tool. And there, now we just have the aqua logo being the transparent part. So there, those are several ways to define alpha channel information so that you can create transparent areas so that one layer can show through others.